Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on something I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think you're really going to enjoy this one. We're talking about secondary metabolites. Now, that might sound kind of intimidating, but trust me, you've encountered these things, or at least their effects,
Oh, absolutely.
all the time.
Yeah.
So basically, these are compounds that organisms make. And I'm talking plants, I'm talking fungi, bacteria, you name it.
Right.
But here's the thing. They don't make these compounds to grow or reproduce. They're not essential for those basic functions.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
more like they produce them as like specialized tools.
Yeah. I like that. Specialized tools.
Yeah.
It's a great analogy because they really are kind of like weapons or signals,
Yeah.
and they can have some pretty big impacts on us humans too.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating about them. Now, we were looking at some sources on this, and
Yeah.
it's clear there are tons of these compounds. It's like mind-boggling, the diversity. But scientists, of course, being scientists, they've got to categorize them, right?
Well, of course, we have to organize the chaos somehow, right? So we
Yeah.
look at where they come from, their chemical structures, and what they do. That helps us make sense of it all.
And for this deep dive, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to really dig into what your sources say about these secondary metabolites, especially how they're used in medicine. So we're going to be talking about some of the major categories like alkaloids, terpenoids, phenolic compounds, and we'll try to touch on some others like glycosides and polyketides.
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive in.
All right, let's kick things off with alkaloids. I've heard that term before, but to be honest, I don't really know what it means. What makes an alkaloid an alkaloid?
So alkaloids are a group of natural compounds. They almost always have nitrogen in them, and that often makes them alkaline,
Yeah.
basic on the pH scale.
Right.
But what's really cool about alkaloids is that many of them have really powerful effects on the human body.
Okay.
A classic example is quinine. It's an alkaloid that comes from the bark of the cinchona tree,
Yeah.
and it was a total game changer for treating malaria.
Wow, I did not that.
Yeah, it was huge. Really shows you the impact these compounds can have.
Okay, so we got alkaloids. What about terpenoids? What are those all about?
So terpenoids, sometimes called isoprenoids, are another huge group. They're super diverse in their structure. The
Yeah.
basic building block is a 5-carbon unit that repeats and links together in all sorts of ways.
Okay.
But the really interesting thing is because their structures are so diverse, they have a ton of different functions. Like in plants, they're involved in defense.
Hmm.
Yeah, keeping herbivores from munching on them.
Right.
But they can also attract pollinators. And a lot of the fragrant compounds and essential oils, guess what? They're terpenoids too. So yeah, huge variety in structure, huge variety in function.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, now we got to talk about phenolic compounds. They seem to be everywhere these days, especially when people talk about health and stuff. Why is that?
Well, phenolic compounds, they all have these aromatic rings with hydroxyl groups attached. And if you think about it, a lot of these compounds, they act as antioxidants in plants, protecting them from things like UV radiation.
Makes sense.
And that's where the health benefits for us come in, because antioxidants can help protect our cells from damage too.
Oh, okay.
So there's a ton of research going on right now looking at how phenolic compounds can be used to prevent or treat all sorts of diseases that are linked to oxidative stress.
So basically, what's good for the plant could be good for us too.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, our sources also mentioned a whole bunch of other categories: glycosides, saponins, polyketides, lignans, coumarins, and essential oils. We obviously don't have time to go into detail on each of those, but what's the main takeaway here? What's the common thread?
I'd say the main takeaway is just how incredibly creative nature is when it comes to chemistry. Each of these categories, it represents a different kind of structural theme, right? And that leads to a unique set of biological activities. For example, polyketides, they often have these really complex ring structures, and they're a major source of antibiotics.
Yeah.
And then you've got glycosides, which have a sugar molecule attached. And that sugar, it actually influences how active the compound is and how our bodies process it. It's just amazing to see the sheer variety of molecular tools that have evolved out there.
It really is. So let's zoom out a little. What's the big picture when it comes to secondary metabolites in medicine?
Well, if we look back, secondary metabolites have always been a crucial part of drug discovery. I mean, a lot of our most important medicines came from these natural compounds. Aspirin originally came from willow bark, which has salicylic acid, a phenolic compound. And we have tons of antibiotics that are derived from polyketides made by microorganisms. And that brings up a really important question. If we've found so many incredible medicines from these natural sources, what else is out there? What other therapeutic treasures are just waiting to be discovered?
That's a great question. So, what we've learned today is that secondary metabolites are this vast and diverse group of compounds found in nature. They're incredibly impactful, especially in medicine. And considering all this variety and all the amazing things they can do, it makes you wonder what other potential medicinal uses are still out there? What else is hidden in nature's pharmacy just waiting to be found?
Absolutely. It's a really exciting field with so much potential.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive as much as I did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
And remember, there's a whole world of amazing compounds out there just waiting to be discovered.